What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk by the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Euroset Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, and back with me for some more AFC roundups over the past offseason is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, doing well. Another white guy and another white shirt. We're just a couple of white guys and white
Just a
shirts right now.
couple of white guys in white shirts for throwing off the white balance of this podcast. That's a photography joke. Uh Coming to you, like I said, more with some more AFC recaps of their respective off seasons throughout the AFC East and the AFC West. Um, we'll have one more to go for this, being the AFC North. You'll catch that obviously next week, but not too much 1265 Lombardi Avenue this week. So, Jordan, should I guess we just hop right into it?
Let's do it. Let's talk about other teams and crap on them occasionally.
That's right. Uh, Particularly the New England Patriots. Let's start. We'll bottom up from division standings last year. Uh, Biggest thing about their offseason, number two, drafted Drake May. Uh, Obviously missing out on the Caleb Williams sweepstakes this past offseason and just in generally not sucking worse than the Panthers since the Panthers had the pick but then traded to the Bears last year, all that jazz. But yeah, they were, if I'm mistaken, I forget what the record was last year. No, it wasn't
4 and
good.
13.
4-13. Yeah, the definition of not good. So, like I said, they get Drake May, a couple of other big departures for them. Particularly where did Devontae Parker go? Oh, he hasn't even signed yet, but they lost Mike.
Devontae Parker retired.
Oh, that's right. I was like, yeah, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they lost Mike Gesicki to the Bengals. They traded their old QB Mac Jones to the Jaguars. Zeke Elliott resigned with the Cowboys. Like they had a lot of departures this offseason. None of which I guess is particularly like terrible because that team was bad anyways last year. And so um nothing like they reset Hunter Henry, which is good for them. Like Hunter Henry is good. Might give Drake May a bit of a safety valve um to throw to on a team that doesn't have a whole lot at wide receiver. Like it's pretty slim at the moment. They have Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, and Jalen Polk as their ESPN offered up starting wide receiver room. They still have Juju Smith-Schuster. I think they also signed KJ Osborne. Like
They did.
that's just a super meh kind of wide receiver. Like Demario Douglas has some high upside, I think, but yeah, I think he's still only a second year guy. Um, Jalen Polk for them is another guy that's like that could be good, but he was just drafted this past draft, so we'll see that way. They did sign uh Chukwuma Okorafor, the right tackle from Pittsburgh this offseason as well. So, what are your thoughts on the Patriots? They had I'd say, a pretty like fine offseason.
I would be probably the best case scenario. Obviously, probably the biggest change of anything is moving on from Bill Belichick, a Hall of Fame coach. We
Yeah,
could speak on to
just
we could
to say
speak
the
on
least.
just run the mill, whatever. You could speak to what the Patriots were like post Tom Brady, but I felt like he still elevated them despite clear talent issues, which was another Bill Belichick problem, not the head coach Bill Belichick, but the GM Bill Belichick, who turns out to be the same person. Just a weird kind of set of scenarios there. Anyway, I do. Yeah, you kind of go over like the weapons that Drake May has, and it's really kind of uninspiring. I've seen a lot of. I think Mina Kimes has beaten this drum of very good defense, and might last year might have been just really bad set of circumstances like injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I can understand that, and I think defensively they'll still be very good even with under Gerard Mayo.
yeah,
I just don't know if they can like their starting running back. They just extended Ramondre Stevenson, who's
yep,
good. They signed Antonio Gibson, who has shown flashes of being more than just kind of a second string running back in my mind.
Yeah. He was a
But
he was a good running back out of the backfield, like catching balls for them for the Commanders the past few years.
yes,
But that running back room got really crowded,
very crowded, very easily.
especially with Austin
I
Eckler going there.
That's right. Yeah, well, yeah, we'll touch on that when we get to the East and NFC East. I just don't know if it's the year, and I don't think they want to be super good, obviously. And they're in a
Right.
really tough division. I mean, we'll get into the teams coming up, but
Right.
yeah, I don't think things really change for them outside of getting valuable reps for their next, hopefully what they think is their next Tom Brady.
Yeah. Ideally for them this year, they just build upon successes. Like I think that's just the best thing to do for any young team, obviously. And getting a culture guy like Gerard Mayo just to like set that tone and I think bring a little intensity to the team. Like not to say that Belichick wasn't intense, but I think he was just a coach set in his ways. And I think that had obviously like run its course, which is a weird thing to say about possibly the greatest coach of all time. And so, but I think it is like that was just what happened. There, he had kind of lost control of the direction of the team without Tom Brady in the years since they had drafted Mac Jones, and just everything that had happened since Tom Brady just wasn't good for the franchise. Essentially, they made the playoffs the rookie year with Mac Jones, so like Mac Jones rookie year, and then just wasn't good since. So I think I don't think it was an amicable split. Like I think Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft kind of butt heads. I think that was quite obvious
Oh, I
throughout
watched that. I
reporting and
watched that Apple TV
roast.
documentary. That
Oh,
was
the documentary. I have not
yeah,
watched that.
it's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected out of it, which is
They
half
basically
the
just
reason I didn't
threw
watch
Bill
it.
Belichick under the bus and then
Yeah,
fired him.
I think I did hear that. So, um, but yeah, I'll be curious to see how that wide receiver room develops because I think they have some talent there. It'll just be interesting to see how well they capitalize on it because like I liked Jalen Polk in the draft process this year for like a late round wide receiver pick if they ended up nabbing one, if the Packers ended up nabbing one. Um, Juju Smith-Schuster being wide like will probably start. He's he's a second string on ESPN, but I don't see any reality in which they just don't throw a pass catcher like Juju Smith-Schuster out there. Um, the defense still has some players. They did lose Jalen Mills to the Giants, which is a
Mhm.
un and not a significant but not an insignificant blow for them. Um, lost a few players on their defense, including Armon Watts, interior defensive lineman, just a cheap guy, but still lost nonetheless. Um, and then trying to find the other one I was thinking of, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it. Oh, Miles Bryant. They lost that corner as well.
Yep.
So with all that being said, I just think it's gonna be another tough year for them. Get another high draft pick, maybe draft um a stud lineman to protect Drake May. I couldn't tell you how good Okorafor is, the guy they just signed, but he's their starting left tackle as of right now, and they have Mike Onowinu as their right tackle. So we'll see. It's gonna be probably just a bad year for him.
Bad year. There are other like draft picks. You mentioned Polk, obviously. They also drafted Javon Baker from UCF, that super athletic guy with like really good hands. Maybe he's
Yeah.
like a good day three guy that pops. They also drafted Joe Milton the third, which I forgot about.
Oh
Um,
yeah. He's old,
yeah, I
isn't he?
just
I think he
he
is.
is old. Um, yeah,
24. Yeah.
I think it's well, yeah, it's gonna be they're at least 1 or 2 years away.
Yeah. I could honestly see a reality too in which Drake May doesn't start. Like if they just let Jacoby Brissett kind of drive the bus this
Yeah.
season and let May develop, that that honestly probably has the same um end result for the Patriots this year, whether they start Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. So
Mhm.
I'm always team let your QB develop, don't start him right away. But that's just my my mantra.
Worked out here. That's all that
It
matters.
that's right. All right. Shall I move on to the best team in New York, apparently, according to local media members?
Yeah, because that's all the NFL is.
Correct.
Two teams in New York.
That's right. The New
Yeah.
York Jets. The Aaron Rodgers hopefully led New York Jets. I'm curious as to what your feelings are on like the Jets totally coming into this year. Like, are you totally sick of Rodgers?
Well, I
The,
just saw that he came back from Egypt today.
what? I
Yeah,
did,
that whole storyline of he mysteriously
this
left the Jets
yeah,
minicamp.
yeah,
He
wasn't
went
there
to
during.
Egypt.
All right,
Had
I
some
guess.
he had some things to figure out. I I mean, we kind of knew foresaw this coming. We had been through it. It's gonna be on a bigger spectacle, and this is what they signed up for. This is what happens. You think
Yep,
it's gonna work out. Um, I'm looking at what they did this summer or slash off season. They obviously traded Zach Wilson to the Broncos, a team that we'll get into later. There's some good things that they did. They signed Javon Kinlaw, who I think he's decent. He's at least gives them some depth on the D line. They traded for Hassan Reddick. He also did not show up for minicamp because he wants a new contract or a
yep,
contract extension.
it's going
That
great.
might that's not going great at all. They brought back some guys like CJ Mosley. I think the biggest thing is their offensive line. And they obviously
You forgot their biggest go get.
who?
They went and got Mike Williams,
Oh,
Chargers wide
I forgot that
receiver.
they did that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I didn't hate that.
perpetually broken Mike Williams.
He is always yes. Was he out? Oh, he didn't play that much last year. That's why.
No, I think he had some sort of injury, obviously, but
14.4% of snaps. Where I'm using over the cap when I'm doing this, so that's why. I like
north
that.
of 30. I think
North of 30.
off of at least one ACL tear, I'm pretty sure.
Randall Cobb is no longer on this team.
Nope.
Um, Alan Lazard is still on this. Or wait, did they get rid of him?
I think they did last year, right?
He might be still on the team.
Or were they like quiet quit?
No,
He
he's still on the
is.
Jets, but he
Yeah,
wasn't inactive by the end of the year, which
yeah, isn't
shows you how
ideal.
well it's going.
Yep,
Um, yeah, I just think offensive line. I mean, they drafted Olu Fashanu from Penn State.
yep,
Their draft picks, they drafted Braylon Allen, who I'd forgotten that they did.
yep,
Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky, a wide receiver. Jordan Travis, Florida State quarterback.
yeah,
Isaiah Davis, running back from South Dakota State. Quantez Stiggers from the CFL,
yeah.
and Jalen Key from Alabama. Like, I don't know.
I don't even hate like their first four picks. Like
No,
they got a good tackle. I didn't mind Corley in the draft. I thought he'll be all right. Braylon Allen is another running back in that running back room, which is interesting. And then Jordan Davis, like did pretty good at Florida State last year. Like he could if he develops into something good, I think that's a good safety valve for them if the Aaron Rodgers experiment ends up failing or whatever he does retire kind of thing. But
they did
um
sign some veteran tackles. I'm just looking it over right now. They're making a bet with Tyron Smith, who
yeah,
had an injury plagued year with Dallas.
but
Really good.
yeah, it was really good for the Cowboys for a number of years.
Yep. Morgan Moses, who's kind of popped around from different spots, but
Hmm.
it really is. I mean, he Aaron Rodgers played 3 plays or 4 plays last year.
I think it was just three. I think it was like an
Yeah.
incompletion, a run play, and then he got hurt.
The fact that his season ended in just abysmal like pass protection
Yeah,
just showed how much they needed that. And I feel like they added more depth. I just don't know how good that depth is.
yeah, and like I think that's a freak play that happened. Like it's convenient that he got hurt on a broken pass rush kind of thing. But that was the issue for the Jets going into last season, regardless, is that their offensive line was not very good. And so, how do you do that with a quarterback that likes to scramble and extend plays? And we got the answer right away, unfortunately. Um, but I think they have made some effort, obviously, to make sure it doesn't happen again. But um, but yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. I do like the Tyron Smith swing. I do like that. But they also
I
lost.
should
Sorry, go ahead.
Who are you gonna say that they lost? They lose Becton.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Is that they were going to lose.
Yeah.
They also lost Mackay back then. Um, but on the defensive side, moving like that way, they did lose Jordan Whitehead too to the Buccaneers,
Yep.
and he was decent as well. So they kind of
They
shuffled around
finished.
a little bit this year, but not like super duper. You know what I mean? I think they kind of looked at not the demands, quote unquote, per se, that Rodgers made last year, but like Boyle's gone, Tim Boyle's gone because he was
Yep.
just bad. Um, Randall Cobb didn't do a whole lot for them last year. He's gone. I think Alan Lazard could be a pretty heavy candidate for being a 53-man cut casualty. Like
That's a
they
lot of money that they have to
it's a
eat.
lot of money that they're play. Well, I know, but I'd rather just get a better player in there. Like their starting wide receivers right now are Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and probably Alan Lazard. You're not going to start Xavier Gibson in Alan Lazard's place, or you just
Yeah.
draft, or you just put Malachi Corley in there and let him cook, kind of thing. But they have some talent, like at the wide receiver position. Like I think I just want the best ones out there, and then you just eat that money. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah, I
think
will say they signed Lazard to a 4-year, $44 million contract with 22 million guaranteed.
right. So if you lose,
Woof.
I mean,
Woof.
that's half the contract. If they cut him a year early from 2 years of the contract, then that is kind of what it is. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what
Um,
I do, but I know that he's not been good there. Maybe he comes back a little more focused now that he gets to actually play with Aaron Rodgers this year. Maybe that was part of it. He was sick of playing with Zach Wilson. Not the one to give excuses for the guy, but if I'm Alan Lazard, I leave Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers to go to New York, and then I don't get to play with them for the entire season. I'd probably be a little pouty too.
yeah, I will say they ended with as many wins as they did before, which considering how much of a train wreck their season was, being 7-10 in both years, pre Rogers and post Rogers, is kind of remarkable. And it does tell you that they do have something there, not to just keep kind of like being skeptical and taking out, you know, we're punching down on Rogers, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
but it would not be crazy for me to think that they could be in like decent position. I just think any thought of them being a contender to the Jet or to the Chiefs, sorry, or any of the Bengals, Ravens, Bills, you name it, second tier, even third tier, like they would. It's them and Miami are going to be interesting to play for them to play out for who wins second in that division. But I would definitely tilt Miami way more than New York because I think they just have a lot more to prove.
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's definitely the case. And so, like, it's gonna be interesting for sure how the Jets handle this season. Like, I think they could be fine. And I think to your point, they were 7-10 before Rodgers, they were 7-10 after Rodgers, but still post injury. Shows, like you said, that they have talent on this team. Whether or not that can be harnessed is another question. And just like Rodgers, what is he? He'll turn 40 this year, I
He'll
think.
be 40, yes.
Like fresh off of an Achilles injury, not exactly working out in the offseason. Like I'm curious as to how sharp he is going into this season and throughout it. Because like he's one of the best of all time. Obviously, we got to give him his credit that way. But I also just think that 40 is old and he has a lot of miles in that body with a lot of injuries and exactly no chemistry with any of the people there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not exactly zero, but pretty darn close to zero. Not a full season's worth for sure. So, anything else on the Jets?
No, I think that kind of sums it up.
All right. Let's move on then to the Miami Dolphins. They were second place in last year's season. Trying to pull up their record quick, but they were the wild card behind. They went to Kansas City and lost. They were 11-6 last year. They lost a tiebreaker with Buffalo. Um, another like I don't think dubious is the word, but definitely eventful offseason for the Miami Dolphins.
Hmm.
They signed Shaq Barrett. They I believe like Xavier Howard still hasn't been re-signed. He's their corner from obviously last year. Didn't he have an issue, is what I'm gonna say? Was he in the news? I feel like he might have
I
been.
I know there was something a couple years ago. I don't know if it was that recent.
Uh I'll look. But then they also was um they signed Odell Beckham Jr. They won that sweepstakes to put him alongside of Tariq Hill and
I wish I did not look that up. That's
what's
so
his
stupid.
name? Why can't I think of
Xavier
What's Waddle's first name?
Jalen.
Jalen Waddle. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your face about Xavier Howard, yeah, he's been in the news. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
He's got some things to figure out.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yep. Um, Emmanuel Ogba still doesn't have a home, I believe, from according to
Well, let's
at least
these are the
over the cap.
starters. These are the starters that they have moved on or they moved on from in one way or the other.
Okay.
Deshaun Elliott, their starting safety, goes to Pittsburgh. Christian Wilkins, their big defensive lineman that they did not want to pay. He gets a payday from sorry, I was about to say Oakland, Las Vegas. Andrew Van Ginkel goes to the Vikings. There's one of their starting edge rushers. Jerome Baker, popular Packers target for agency, starting linebacker who got hurt, goes to Seattle. Uh, Robert Hunt. Now we're kind of getting in the weeds a little bit. Robert Hunt goes to the Panthers, taking away a guy from the line. Eli Apple has still not been signed, but he was a starting quarterback. Like there was a moment in time where there was a lot of things going on with the Dolphins that I was like, I don't like it. And even still, I mean, there's a lot of messiness with Tua going on right now. It's not as like, I mean, we're in a good spot with Jordan Love and how things are going on with negotiations, seemingly, but there's a lot more noise with the Tua Dolphins negotiations that would not leave me, um, I would say, reassured if I was a Miami fan. They have pivoted from paying big money to locking up guys long term to kind of playing this. Okay, we're going to go in on 1 year, kind of play it out with these guys and see how it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I totally get it. They did add John Smith though, and they also added Calais Campbell to replace Christian Wilkins. I'm not sure
Yes.
that's a 1-to-1 replacement because Christian Wilkins is pretty damn good for all intents and purposes. And Calais Campbell's like 36. I'm pretty sure he's getting up there, but he was good last year. They did sign Kendall Fuller to replace Davian Howard.
They
They did sign
they
Marcus
have
May. Like,
recovered they have recovered pretty well as the offseason has gone on. And some of their draft picks, I mean, they drafted Chop Robinson, so give him another edge rusher. They made a bet with Patrick Paul, that super duper big offensive lineman. He's from Houston. He's like 6'9",
yeah,
left tackle kind of
yep.
guy. There are things that would, again, if we're just strictly talking about this season, it's like, okay, it looks good. But I do wonder if this is, if things do not work out, I wonder what job security looks like for McDaniel and company, because it could be a house of cards.
I see your point. I'm not entirely sure I buy into like Mike uh Mike is it yeah. Is it just Daniels or is it McDaniels?
McDaniel.
That's what I thought. I was like my brain is shot this afternoon, apparently. Um I'm not sure Mike McDaniel's gonna be on the hot seat. They've been really good under him. And I I think who's more on the hot seat is Tua. Like frankly. Like I think
True.
that's just the case. And so I do think though that you are right in that if it doesn't work out this year, this team might look a lot different next year. Just because like if Tua's not back or no. Yeah, this is Tua's last year, I'm pretty sure. Um
Yeah, he
his
he'll be on the last year of his contract, and this is all
his
about
rookie
contract.
deal.
Yeah,
Right. And so I think it's just like what do you do if Tua isn't the guy? Because they don't have a whole lot of cap space to spend and like or to go get a guy. I'm not sure. Like I think they might have picked, but they also might not because I know that they did that deal with Bradley Chubb, um,
Well, and Tyreek
and
too.
Tyreek and stuff like
They
that. Like
lost picks because of
I
Stephen
think
Ross and
yeah,
all that stuff.
that was this year's pick, I believe. This their first round this year. Was that right? No, they got 21 this year.
The last 2 years, I think they have not had their first round pick.
They drafted Chop
I
at 21 this year.
yes, yes,
So I'm
my
not
bad.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. But no, you're right. They definitely have had some forfeited. Um, so yeah, it's just it just feels like it needs to happen now
yeah.
for the Dolphins to at least make a deep run to have confidence to run it back next year and switch out a couple pieces where you had deficiencies. But oh, buddy, it was definitely like it's getting to that time for the Dolphins. Like they've made the playoffs, I think the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think they made it
They have not won a playoff game since 2001.
right, exactly. Like it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they just need to show some type of progress because if I'm not mistaken, they did get in 2 years ago as well as last year, but I forget if they did get in 2 years ago. My brain is
They lost to the I can't remember, it was last year the
last year was the cold game in Arrowhead
Kansas City, and then the year before they lost to Buffalo, I believe.
in the playoffs. Oh yeah, because they had to go up to Buffalo, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
That sounds about right. So regardless, yeah, like they just need to build on success. Like they added Jordan Poyer from the Bills. Like that's a good signing for them. They made a lot of good signings. It's just like,
Yep.
can they do the thing? I'd like them to do the
Put up
thing.
or
I
shut up
like the
time.
Dolphins, but yeah, I would agree. It's put up or shut up time. So
Is
anything
there a
else?
world
Oh,
that you,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, is there a world where you think the Jets might leapfrog them?
Yeah, I don't think it's an impossibility. Like a healthy Rodgers, if he's playing well, I think has fully capable of getting 4 more wins out of that team.
I think it looks 10-7 over like 9-8 kind of deal.
I'd put them at a couple higher. Like I think
Really?
both teams get to double digits. If Rodgers is healthy all year, yeah. Like they were a third place team last year. They're gonna play a third place team schedule. And so that's probably just better overall for the Jets. And so
Okay.
uh
Okay.
I'd probably put them at both at double digit wins. I'm not sure how many, but um yeah, I think they're definitely gonna battle out for the division for sure.
Fair. Fair.
Anything else?
No, I think that's a good
Segue into what we're
state of the Dolphins.
yeah. I think they're both gonna battle for the division because the Bills got significantly worse this offseason. Finished last year in first place at 11-6, right? I can't do math off the top of my head.
Yes.
And boy howdy, did their offseason see some big departures. Stephon Diggs, obviously gone. Tre'Davious White, uh, signed to the Rams. They traded Stephon Diggs to the Texans. That was like the big thing. Um, Naheem Hines, their backup running back, signed at the Browns. Um, Jordan Phillips, their interior defensive lineman, went to the Giants. I guess like we just mentioned, Jordan Poyer went to the Dolphins. Leonard Floyd, their edge rusher, went to the Niners. Like their center, Mitch Morse, went to the Jaguars. It's just it's gonna be tough for them, I think, this year. They don't really have a receiving core. Gabe Davis went to the Jaguars. Um, I just don't know. Like even like Trent Sherfield, like one of their lower tier wide receivers, went to the Vikings. I just don't know what it looks like for them to um like what success looks like for them for this year because that the offense just I think is going to be worse. They're still led by Josh Allen. They still have James Cook as a running back, who I think is a decent running back. But according to ESPN's depth chart, their starters right now are Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and they have Keon Coleman slated as the second starting wide receiver, but I think it's probably going to be Chase Claypool or MVS. but they signed KJ Hamler, they signed Mac Hollins. Like that's just not a good wide receiver core, dude. Like I liked Keon Coleman coming out of college, but it's gonna take a minute for him to be I think it's gonna take a minute to be a meaningful receiver in the league, probably at least a year.
It's not great. They're clearly a worse team.
Yeah,
I will say, I do think that they made strides in the second. I mean, clearly because they were out of playoff contention at one point. They went more towards a running first system instead of just going all in on passing and trusting Josh Allen and living with the mistakes that he can make. The division is more of a toss up than it had been in the last couple of years. I don't know if the Dolphins and the Jets are good enough to overtake them, but I would, again, would not be shocking to see that happen. I will say their defense looks to be as good, if not a little bit better. Because Tre'Davious White, he did get hurt by the midway through the year. They had a lot of injuries too. They lost their starting linebacker. They lost a linebacker that took over for him, Dotson, because I remember really liking him in free agency. They did lose Jordan Poor. Um, some of the signings that they did to address the defense, like Mike Edwards from the Chiefs, good underrated cog in their defense last year. Nicholas Morrow from the Eagles. I mean, they had their own kind of mess on their hands by the end of the year, but it's like good enough to again compete. I don't think it's good enough to contend. I think they're taking a step back. It's just a lot. The
for
whole
sure.
division's a lot more muddled this year.
Yeah, I think it won't be like a standout AFC East with by any means for sure. Like I think it's just like you said, it's gonna be muddy. It's gonna be kind of a battle of attrition to see who gets out of that division, frankly. Because Josh Allen, for as good as he is, still has Dawson Knox to throw to, still has Dalton Kincaid to throw to. Like for all intents and purposes, this offense might just make a shift towards running two tight ends consistently and running the ball more and utilizing the athleticism that Dalton Kincaid um brings to the tight end position is as well as Dawson Knox's just pass catching ability. Like
Yep.
I think they're both better together than they are like platooning per se. And so that's probably a good thing to assume that they're going to do this year, given that the wide receivers aren't as good as you'd think. Um, but yeah, like I just think they took two big swings on Curtis Samuel still being good and Marquez Valdez-Scantling being any sort of reliable. Like we know MVS's issues of big drops in big situations for us and against us, given the Chiefs game last year when he dropped that ball in a critical situation. But yeah, like I like the Bills. I like a lot of teams in the East. Frankly, like well, two of them. I like the Dolphins and the Bills. I want to see either of them succeed at some point. But I just don't think they're gonna be that good this year. Like they re-signed their left tackle Deion Dawkins. It's good for them, keep Josh Allen safe. But Von Miller signed again, which I was kind of shocked by because I thought he had some sort of issue again in the news.
Yeah,
I'm
there was
pretty
some
sure he
weird stuff
did.
going on with him too.
Yeah. And so uh yeah, I don't know. I don't know, dog.
Well, let's rank them.
Yeah.
Where do you project this division?
Top
I mean,
down, I think it's gonna be Dolphins, Jets, Bills, Patriots.
Dolphins, Jets, Bills, Patriots.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think like it'll be close at the top, but I think the Bills are probably 2 to 3 games back of second place. They probably missed the playoffs this year, which also probably gets Sean McDermott fired, which isn't fair to him given everything we just talked about and them taking a step back this year.
No, they really, yeah, they went all in and are feeling it now.
Yeah,
Ooh. Is there a world where the Patriots may punch above their weight? And
I don't think
no,
so. I don't
I don't
think
think
so.
so.
I don't think they have the hands to throw to punch above their weight per se to keep the metaphor kind of rolling. Like I just don't know where they're getting that punch from. Like I like Ramondre Stevenson, but he had a down year last year for sure, battling through injuries. So if he can get back to who he was 2 years ago, that'd be a plus. You no longer have Bill Belichick there to punish guys for fumbling. Like that was a Bill Belichick calling card. Is that if you fumble, you just weren't playing the next game, like all the rest of the game or possibly the next game. He hated it, and so like I don't know. I just don't know where the firepower comes from on that offense to punch above their weight.
I will go Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots.
Bills first? Really? Why?
Because I can still think that if we're looking at it from this perspective, I think they have the best quarterback in the league. Or sorry, in the division. In the
I
division.
was gonna say.
In the division. In the division.
Okay.
I think they did find a way to win, and it was not as fun as how like the freewheeling Bills are. They do, I mean, for all the questions and like Stephon Diggs, I mean, they moved on from him for a reason. He was not that good by the end of it, in part by switching how they played. They fired their offense coordinator, Ken Dorsey, under mitigating circumstances. They found their rhythm under Joe Brady, who was a couple years ago was like regarded as like a really like up and coming guy. I think they have a good track record of developing guys, like whether it's through the draft or like Gabe Davis kind of came out of nowhere. Like they just know how to hit on these guys. I don't feel comfortable. Like I don't think it's a sure thing. I think this division is kind of a toss up when we get closer to it. But I lean towards the talent that I see from there rather than that, and a very like incredibly influential position rather than saying, "Oh, the Jets defense is really good," but how like you know it still only got them 7 win seasons back to back, kind of thing. And Miami, I mean Miami might be number one, but there's still something funny about everything going on down there that I can't quite trust.
No, I get that. I totally get that reasoning. Like it's hard to trust the Dolphins when we've tried to trust the Dolphins the last 2, 3 years, and they haven't really given us as NFL fans anything to actually believe about. And so like again, I'm all for it, frankly. I think it's just a tough sell when you're trying to pick a division winner. That's just all it is. So all right. That's the AFC East. Let's roll on to the AFC West, which I think is a lot less captivating, interesting, a lot less cloudy. I think it's quite clear who's going to be good in this division and who isn't. And I don't think it's going to be close. Uh let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers, that of newly employed Jim Harbaugh, pulling him away from the University of Michigan. You were muted. I didn't know what you said.
I said Walmart pants himself because that was a big
Walmart
thing.
pants, staying in a van down by the river. Jim Harbaugh himself. Um, they re-signed Joey Bosa. They re-signed Khalil Mack. Like that's two like good additions for them to keep. But they had a significant amount of turnover this offseason. Um, they traded Keenan Allen to the Bears. Like we had said earlier, that they lost Mike Williams to the Jets. Uh, they lost Austin Eckler to the Commanders. Austin Johnson, one of their interior defensive linemen, he signed with the Bills. Eric Kendrick also leaves from, I think he signed with the Chargers after he was let go from the Vikings last year, and now he's at the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the corner, Michael Davis, signed with the Commanders. Like, there's just a lot of Jalen Gutton, their wide receiver, who did well for them as like a third string guy. Signed with the Raiders. Like it's just they had a lot of turnover this offseason. And the same thing with that we said with the Bills. I don't expect this team to compete again this year, given who they're rolling out at wide receiver. Like Justin Herbert is really good. That's just a fact. He's really good. Their starting running back is Gus Edwards. Their backup running back is J.K. Dobbins. Ask the Ravens how this went. Like
Yep.
it wasn't productive by it injuries or just inconsistently. They drafted Kamini Vadal. I think out of I forget what college he went to. I think it was Troy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And
Troy.
but then their starting wide receivers are Quentin Johnson, who was their top receiver pick last year, had a pretty poor rookie year. Joshua Palmer, and now their rookie receiver this year, Lad McConkey. Like Lad McConkey is good. He was really good at Georgia. Again, how well does he slot in as a rookie receiver in the NFL? There was good reports out of minicamp. Like I think he'll probably be. There's talks that he'll be wide receiver one pretty quickly.
I think that is very clear.
Right, but like those top three, right?
Yep.
And then their first backup is DJ Chark Jr. After that, it's five fellas I have never heard of in my entire life. I'm sorry, eight fellas: Brendan Rice, Darius Davis, Semi Feheko, Cornelius Johnson, Jalen Gill, Praise Olotoke, Jalen Johnson, and Leon Johnson the third. No idea who they are. Like they just lost all their talent at wide receiver there, which might be good. Like Keenan Allen was good. Like I think they got good value. I think it was like a fourth or something. I forget what that trade was, but regardless,
Yeah.
letting Mike Williams walk is probably a fine idea. Like he wasn't always available and he wasn't that good in the first place. Austin
Even
Eckler was on the
Keenan,
wrong side of whatever age he was, because whenever I see the Austin Eckler news, it always goes to him trying to run away from the Packers when they played at Lambeau this year. And that man looked like he was running with a refrigerator on his back. And so they still have Rashawn Slater at left tackle to protect Herbert's backside. They drafted Joel Alt at right tackle this year. Like that's good for them. They should have a more stout line. But I think this team is like this is a gap year for them, I think for sure.
yeah, it's year one of the Harbaugh era. I think if anything, I would say you have protection in place. You've invested two, if I'm not mistaken, two back-to-back years where they Slater and Alt. So your offensive line is kind of bookended by,
Slater was 2021.
oh, that many years ago already?
Yep.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, because Quentin Johnson was their pick last year in the first round.
Yes, Quentin Johnson, and then I think, oh, I can't remember who the year before was. Anyway, they're bookended by these two top linemen, one prospect, one more established. Herbert's really good. It might be coming down to, can he make lemonade with lemons that are already like zested? You know what I mean?
Kind of. I don't think the lemons are zested. I think they're fresh lemons.
Some are
But
fresh, some are not.
I mean, yeah, Quentin Johnson
Like,
and Ladd McConkey are young still. Joshua Palmer is half young, but then Chark, Edwards, and Dobbins are probably have their run of NFL careers coming to an end soon to be
yeah.
a dickhead.
No, I think if they like dream up of any success, it's that Justin Herbert is so good that it is the rising tide that lifts all boats kind of thing.
Right. I just think that it's low tide right now.
Yeah, it's very low tide. I mean, I will say Chark is not a bad receiver, but he's certainly not great by any means.
He's just inconsistent. He's never gotten consistent playing time. Like he's been in
Yeah.
the league now. This will be his sixth year in the league, and I just don't think he's ever had like a. He's had one season where he was really good. He had a in 2019 he had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. But since then, he's played 13, 4, 11, and 15 games with 2 years more with the Jaguars. He played 1 year with Detroit in 2022. And then he was on the Panthers last year. So
Yeah.
pre-popping Detroit Lions, he played 11 games, had 30 catches. And Carolina was a shit show last year, and he had 35 catches in 15 games. And so, like,
I
I don't
I
know.
will say I like the top of their draft. Joe Alt, McConkey, Junior Colson, I think is going to walk in and be
Yeah,
their starting like middle linebacker for the next. I mean,
replacing
if he
Eric
stays healthy.
Kendricks. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's I think what we're heading on. It's year one, and it might not come all together really right away, but they have to build those building blocks and then go from there.
yeah. No, I think that they just gotta figure out their identity this year and get those building blocks in place. Like just see what you have kind of thing. Like it's not the same situation as the Packers were last year, where they were just all where it was all uh young guys, because obviously like they took the effort to resign Khalil Mack and resign Joey Bosa. Like I this team has expectations of winning. I just don't think they're gonna get there. Because like you wouldn't resign Bosa and Mack for as much money as they did. 15 and 19 million guaranteed this year. And so like Joey Bosa is probably there for at least another 2, 3 years. Mac probably for at least another two. This one and next probably. But yeah, I just they lost like their starting center Corey Linsley and re-signed, or then they signed Bradley Bozeman from the Panthers last year. Like it's just I
They
again,
made a lot of hard decisions all at once rather than staggering them.
yeah, which is
And you
you can applaud them for that. Like that's a good way to do it for sure. I just don't think the expectations are going to rise to their play level, or the play level is going to rise to their expectations this year,
yeah, that's fair.
frankly. So
Speaking of hard decisions,
yeah, speaking of hard decisions, next up is the Denver Broncos. Their hard decision is who in the fuck do we start at fucking quarterback, dude? Because do you start Jared Stidham, Bo Nix, or do you start Zach Wilson for 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 the Denver Broncos to throw to Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, or Marvin Mims Jr.? I'm asking.
I I know you're asking. I don't have an answer. Yeah, I think this is probably it's easily the worst quarterback pool of any team
Yeah,
in the NFL this year.
it's not good. I can Yeah, it's not good for them. They obviously let Russell Wilson go after the debacle that was his time in Denver. He resigns with the Steelers, signs with the Steelers. They did sign John Franklin Myers, the edge rusher from New York, the Jets. We had talked about earlier. They lose their linebacker Josie Jewell to the Panthers. They traded Jerry Jeudy to the Browns. Um, they did sign Josh Reynolds from the Lions, who played all right last year. A couple big time plays. Um, they signed a safety from Miami, Brandon Jones. They did lose their starting center, Lloyd Cushenberry, to the Titans. He signed a big deal with them. Um, and he was like their starting center. He played like almost all their snaps last year.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's just I don't know what this team's look like, dude, but I don't think it's looking any type of good. Like they still have Javonte Williams, he's pretty good. Samaje Perine, I think they signed last year, if I'm not mistaken, or is he new
Yes.
this year?
No, he signed
He is
last
there.
year.
He was there last year. And they have
Yep.
Jaleel McLaughlin, their third string running back, who showed flashes last year. So at the very least, they at least have talent in the running back room. But the NFL is a quarterback league, Jordan, and they don't have one.
No, I think this might be in the running for the worst team in the league next year.
Yeah,
I think,
I think
right?
that's pretty simple. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, if Sean Payton can, so again, make lemonades out of, or yeah, make lemonade out of zested lemons. More power to him. But this is awful. This is I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
I mean, yeah, like they have their defenses was fine last year, if I'm not mistaken, but they still have Pat Surtain the second at corner. Um, those are really the only names that jump out at me. I frankly haven't didn't watch a lot of Broncos last year because they were not good.
Outside the one game that they stole from the Packers, but yeah,
That's right. Exactly. So I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for sure for them. I just don't know how Sean Payton like makes anything out of them for uh competitively. Like I just don't know.
Yeah.
All right, you have nothing else on the Broncos you want to talk about anymore?
No, they're awful. They're
Yeah, they're not.
awful.
I
And
mean,
their uniforms are basically the Chargers with orange. And it is, yeah, just awful. Just
yeah,
terrible.
and they didn't have a good draft. Like
No,
they,
they didn't even have that many picks because it's all tied up in the trade
yeah, the Sean Payton trade
and
and the Russell Wilson
Wilson.
trade. Um,
Ugh, just
yeah,
awful.
their first round pick went to Bo Nix. Their next pick was the 12th pick in the third round, and they got
Just
Jonah Ellis, Utah edge rusher.
just wild.
Yeah, it's not good. And they don't have a couple more of those picks from the Russell Wilson trade coming up the next couple of years too. So,
Ugh.
all right, we'll move on from the Broncos then, since they're not very good. Moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders. They had an interesting offseason as well. A lot of interesting teams in this division because, like, frankly, I just don't think it's all that good. Like it's top
No,
heavy
it's
for sure.
yes. It's the question is who is racing to finish second.
Pretty much. Pretty much. They lose Jimmy Garoppolo. He goes to sign with the Rams as a backup to Matthew
Oh,
Stafford.
I forgot that's where you went.
Yeah. I think is also suspended
Yes.
for PEDs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yep.
Uh Hunter Renfro hasn't signed, at least according to Over the Cap. They obviously lose Josh Jacobs to the Packers. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you. Um, interior defensive lineman Bilal Nichols, they lost him to the Cardinals. Jerry Tillery, they lost to the Vikings, who I don't think was that good last year. I feel like he was just like a veteran for them. Lost tight end Austin Hooper. Doesn't so much matter for them. They have the really good tight end from last year that they drafted. Plus, they just drafted. Um, oh my God, who was the tight end this year? Who was the best tight
Brock
end?
Bowers,
Brock Bowers. But then who was the other one last year? There was Dalton
Michael
Kincaid,
Mayer.
Michael Mayer. Thank you. They have him as well. Um, but yeah, a lot of departures. DeAndre Carter, the wide receiver, like not a big weapon for them, but still a loss. Like they're starting. Why are all the names leaving my head? I can see his mustache. What the hell is his name? What's his quarterback?
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew. I don't know what is going on in my brain tonight, dude. They're starting Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Like you go through the whole process, which again, this is a bigger issue than or a bigger talking point than it is like an issue. It was just a failed experiment. Like they go through the process of signing Devontae Adams and pulling him away from the Packers and have promptly done nothing with his time there. Like
No.
he said he wants to play there, like in Vegas a couple of times this offseason and like is fine with staying there and didn't demand a trade or anything. But golly, like if I'm Devontae Adams, I'm pretty annoyed that it all went to shit so fast for that franchise. And I'm surprised. And I'm honestly surprised they didn't trade him for something because he's a valuable wide receiver, arguably the best in the NFL, and has a real spot on a winner or like on a contending team. Why not just get something back for Devontae Adams? Like I firmly believe if somebody wanted him bad enough, you could get a first round pick for Devontae or multiple seconds or something like that. Like because he has real value right now, and he's just wasting away in Vegas. And maybe he doesn't want to get traded. He's from that area. Maybe he's fine with just staying there and riding out the rest of his career as a pretty darn good receiver in his career. But I don't know what this
Yeah,
direction of this team has, dude.
it won't be the last. I mean, I think we they clearly they fired Josh McDaniels midway through the year. Um Antonio
Immediately
Pierce
got
takes
better. Immediately got better under Antonio Pierce.
yes, and it was a question of whether they wanted him or were they going to go big fishing for Harbaugh or Belichick. I think was kind of briefly mentioned in that mix. I'm missing maybe someone else. Either way, they go back to Pierce. Draft class is pretty good. Like going after Brock Bowers, him falling because there were 6 quarterbacks taking the first 12 picks, kind of was their game. They get Jackson Power. What's Jackson Powers Johnson? Right, JPG,
JPJ.
JPJ, not JPG, JPEG. Um, he goes to Las Vegas. I This team has a defined ceiling. They're second in the division for me. Like
Oh
they're
yeah,
competitive.
without a doubt.
They're not like it very much feels like what would be a good equivalent? I don't know. But it's not it this is they're not too bad to be like the top of the draft. They're just fine. They lose Josh Jacobs, their leading rusher. They were kind of blindsided by that. But they made up for it with I like the Wilkins signing, if that was a lot of money for a team that's not gonna really win much. Maybe if they win a playoff game, that's about as good as it gets. Michael Gallup is interesting, even if he's not great. He's kind of in that DJ Chark zone, I would say. I think they just moved on from a lot of guys that are bringing them down rather than bringing them up, which you could say that about a lot of Raiders.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a good point. I
I don't
like
know. I
Michael
just think,
Gallup. I think he's good. I think he'll
yeah,
have room there, obviously, but I
I think it's like they're just a competent team.
I would hope so. Like I think Antonio
Yeah,
Pierce is a good coach and will get the guys in shape, but frankly, trading or signing any sort of Bears lineman is a poor decision on the behalf of your franchise, and you should be ashamed as such. They signed
yeah.
Cody Whitehair.
Cody
Like we said, they signed Jalen Guyton too. Like I just don't know. I don't know what the teams look like this year. Starting receivers are Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker. Like Gallup probably gets put there in place of Trey Tucker. But I think honestly, the biggest thing I think is similar to the Bills. They're probably just going to run a whole lot of two tight end sets because they
Yeah,
have talent out there. If you can throw the ball to Bowers, Mayer, or Devonta Adams on any given play, that's probably a winning play. But
yeah.
I like Zamir White. I think he's a good running back. Um, they signed Alexander Madison, who was not good for the Vikings last year, and so they still have Max Crosby, an absolute beast off of the edge.
You could say they have three of the best position players in the league at their respective positions, with
Yeah,
Wilkins, Crosby, and Demonte.
yeah, I would say that's not a bad argument whatsoever. It's just putting it all together is my biggest thing. Like,
Yeah,
you know what? Like, this team honestly does remind me of like just last year's Colts, and like with Gardner Minshew leading them, like it'll probably end up the same way. Maybe finish second in the division and miss the playoffs because that's just how it shakes out as having Gardner Minshew as your backup quarter or as your starting quarterback. And so I think they're a little better than the Colts were last year, but they're in a tougher division. Or that's not true. They're in a worse division, but they're gonna get at least whopped twice by the Chiefs. That's just
yeah.
how that shakes out. And if you can win the rest of your divisional games against the Broncos and the Chargers, to go 4-2 in your division, like that's good. And just make out how you can on the rest of your season.
Honest question: how would you feel about them? I don't think it ultimately changes anything, but how would you feel about them if they had signed or simply just acquired Russell Wilson rather than Gardner Minshew?
Worse. I don't think Russell Wilson's good.
That's fair.
Like I think Gardner Minshew provides a regular heighted ceiling or floor rather. Like I think Russell Wilson's play can be really bad at times. Like we saw that a few times over the course of the last couple of years. And at least Gardner Minshew is like, I don't know, competent's not the right word. I think young is a good word. Like he's not 36 like Russell Wilson is, or however
Yeah.
old Russell Wilson is. I don't know. Like, I think they're probably better with Minshew than they are with Wilson. But I just think that's just because like I have to believe Wilson's mental and his confidence is in the gutter right now. And
Yeah.
any fan base that has to cheer for Russell Wilson is gonna hate it immediately, and there wouldn't be any like grace period, you know.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of untangibles that make me think that. But that's not to say I think Gardner Minshew is a fantastic quarterback either. I just think, given his track record, he'll get you 9 wins, probably.
Yeah.
So I think if they're 500 this year, that's probably preferred for them. What they probably should do, but I'm not sure what. I think next year's quarterback class is pretty bad, if I remember correctly. I think the only one coming out is the fella out of Texas, Brock or Ewers.
Ears.
Yeah. Um, and um, Sanders, I forget his first name, the quarterback, not the corner. Shador, out of
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Dion's kid.
Yeah, I was kidding.
So
Yeah.
like maybe this isn't the year to full tank. And I think honestly, like you said, they're too good across multiple positions to fully tank. So they're just stuck in this kind of who was here in this spot for a while. I feel like the Dolphins were always in this spot. They were always like 7 to 15 kind of area. The Jets for a few years before is like Zach Wilson. Before they were really bad, they were in this range for a few years. Um, the Giants too, before Daniel Jones, are always in this area. So yeah, I think that they just need to get through this year, assess what they have, and
Yeah.
try and compete as best you can that division. Maybe you sneak a wild card in somewhere, which would be really big for them. Just like as a franchise, keep building on that success. But I don't know. I think it's going to be. I think they're definitely second, in my opinion.
That's
Like
fair.
like ranking this. Well, we'll do the Chiefs. We'll rank where we think they're going to end up. But I think this one's a lot easier than the AFC East.
Yeah.
You want to move on to those Kansas City Chiefs?
Let's do it.
The back-to-back Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs, they end up making a few, I'd say, decent moves for them. Like they need to defend, trying to become the first team since the Packers, I believe, to uh three-peat Super Bowls. So big departures, I should say big, but departures from them. MVS obviously leaves. They did end up re-signing McCole Hardman for them. But I think the biggest thing for them too, as an addition, is Marquise Brown, aka Hollywood Brown. He's good. He's still only 27 years old and just gives them an extra piece on the outside to for Patrick Mahomes to throw to, because I think that was like one of their weak spots in the last few years, was that wide receiver room. Rashee Rice is not a good place in his personal life at the moment. Try to shake out how that works. Uh
Yeah.
but they did draft Xavier Worthy, who I think is very, very good. Like I think that's just an unfair place for him to land for the NFL. Like I think he's gonna be pretty darn good with Patrick Mahomes. But so if I'm not mistaken, Xavier Worthy is just very tall and very good hands. Travis Kelce is still there, obviously. They did sign Irv Smith Jr. as a backup tight end to go with Noah Gray. Um, they did end up losing their punter, which is a weird thing to talk about, but they lost Tommy Townsend to the Texans. Um, they lost Jarius Sneed. They franchise tagged him and I think traded him to the Titans.
Yep.
Other than that, um, they do have Carson Wentz as a backup now,
They do.
which is funny.
They got
But
Mike Caliendo, Frank's brother, on the offensive line.
stop it. But yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are just good. That's all there is to it. They're just gonna run away with this division again, probably get 13, 14 wins and call it a season.
If they're healthy, they win the Super Bowl. It's
I
easy.
would I would think so. I don't think
It's
it's
easy.
that simple if they're healthy kind of thing, because like three-peating is really hard, dude.
Yes.
I think like there were multiple games that they should have lost, like last year in the playoffs. Like that Dolphins game was abysmal for the Dolphins. They probably should have lost that. Then the Ravens just don't show up and they can't beat them. I think it's just like Joe Burrow's healthy, so they'll have to go against the Bengals most likely at some point. I don't know. It's going to be interesting for them for sure. They revamped their offensive line, signing Kingsley, uh, Sua Matia from BYU. I'm sure I pronounced his name wrong, but um, yeah, I just think this is another chalk year for Kansas City. I don't see any reality. Well, I do see reality is one where Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, which we don't want, but there's no other non-injury related reality where the Chiefs don't win this division.
Yeah, I think that that is very, very clear. I like their
Yeah.
draft class too.
Yep.
Jaden Hicks, safety out of Washington State. He was a guy that I looked at, or we looked at, during the draft
Mm.
and liked him. Get him in the fourth round. I just think that they do a good job of moving on when they need to, and it hasn't hurt them as much as it came close to losing the Super Bowl last year or the year before. But they got Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback the NFL's ever seen. So it's quite the checkmate that they have.
Yeah, it's something. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about Chiefs we want to talk about. I don't think there is. Like
No, I think they'll be
it's just
more
pretty
interesting
plain
when
and
we get
simple.
closer.
How so?
Well, in terms of like when we get closer, we'll talk about like more like win over unders, do our Super Bowl predictions, that
Got
kind
it,
of
got it,
thing.
got it, got it, got
But
it,
in
got it.
terms of division sense, I mean, yeah, we both know who's
Yeah.
going to be winning this one.
They did keep Chris Jones, which is really big for them.
Yes,
So a
that was
lot of
huge.
money guaranteed. Um, but all right, what's your ranking on them?
Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos.
That's my also mine. I think that one's
Yeah,
pretty cut and dry
this might be the easiest division to do. I
to
would
do what
say.
we're doing with. Yeah,
I think so.
I would agree with that. So
Maybe NFC South, but that's we'll get to that when we get to
I think NFC South is more difficult because they all stink.
it.
So
Oh God.
that's right. All right, folks. That does it for us on this recap of the AFC East and AFC West. We'll be back in your feeds next week as well to do a rundown of the AFC North and a couple other talking points, Packers wise and things like that. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, on YouTube, and check out the GSP.info to subscribe to the new GSPM premium page. $8 a month to get everything you're already getting, but ad free. So all the GSPN pods, Make Time for This, Eurostep 1 and 6, Top of the Tundra, and Cruising for a Bruising, all ad free, as well as more content exclusively on the Substack, including a lot of writing by Mr. Jordan Tresky and weekly GSPN After Dark videos. If you try and talk, Jordan, your mic is muted. You booped it off with your nose when you put your face.
ESPN after dark.
Oh my god. That's a little clip for you video watchers. But yeah, go check out all the GSPN podcasts. Eurostep and 1 and 6 are doing great things on the Bucks off season right now. We are 3 hours, 3.5, almost 4 hours removed. Or no, almost 3 hours removed from the beginning of free agency. Um, and the Bucks, I don't think have done anything yet, which is to be expected. And so Jordan was just live with Ty on YouTube to talk about all those things. Um, subscribe to YouTube, like we said, to catch those live feeds. The Brewers just took 2 or 3 from the Cubs in their final series at American Family Field with the Cubs this year. So go check out Cruising for a Bruising. They're doing great, great, great stuff, as well as the Brewers have this pretty awesome season going on. So go
Was
check out
that really
Adam.
the last series the Cubs will be here?
Yep, they went to Wrigley early in the year. Then they faced the Cubs over Memorial Day and this series. Then they go to Wrigley the weekend, I think, after the All-Star break, and then that's all they face in
Yep.
this year. Like they don't have any series against the Cubs in August or September.
Interesting.
Yep. Just a weird scheduling quirk this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check out Cruising for a Bruising with Adam and Andrew. And then also check out Make Time for This with Adam and Andrew, as they do all the things pop culture and things like that. So that does it for us, folks. Like we said, go check out GSP.info for all of the latest and greatest things behind that paywall, because it's a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun in there with some GSP After Dark trivia quizzes, Sporkles, Jeopardies, as well as we just recorded a 2.5 hour draft grades for the premium episode this week. So if you're into that stuff, go check it out. So, all right, folks. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back in your feeds next week. Have a safe 4th of July if this comes out. I think this 4th of July is Thursday, right? So
Yes, it is.
hopefully you're listening to this with all of your fingers, toes, and appendages.
2 straight weeks.
Listen, man. Listen, man. It's an epidemic. We don't want to end up like JPP, all right? So with all that being said, thank you everyone for listening. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.